How
Like,
would
I'd
you
love it.
like to present? All three of you?
That would be
Or-
wonderful.
So why
Pull
don't
up
we
a couple
move this chair
chairs.
over and just bring two more chairs up and make you a happy Teresa?
I thought we didn't do this live.
Oh, would we prefer to not have it live?
Well, when it's a safety thing.
No, but this isn't a safety thing. This
I
is
thought it was
asking
going-
specific questions.
We don't plan to cover anything that's confidential,
Oh,
or
okay.
your questions may bring up some sensitive things.
So if there's a super sensitive thing we can't do on camera, why don't you just say you'll get back to us and we'll discuss it when we go off live?
Okay,
Okay, because there are some things with security and safety that we cannot discuss live, as much as we'd love to share everything with you.
Well, actually, no, technically, we should go into executive session in front of.
Yes, okay, we'll do that.
That's the legal way to do it.
But
yes.
at the moment, we are here, back in Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. We are back to say thank you to Kevin Williams, who's been our superb interim chief of the Capitol Police, and to welcome John Polway and our wonderful new Sergeant at Arms, Agatha Kessler. But it is great to have the three of you here at this moment in time, because you won't be here together as a threesome ever
No,
again
that's
after
true.
today. So thank you, welcome, and welcome,
And
and
you're live.
please introduce us as you like. Well, we should
Yes.
introduce ourselves too.
Actually, that would be wonderful.
Yes.
So, Anne, why don't you start?
I already introduced
Oh,
everyone got here, but I'm Ann Cummings. Welcome.
Right, and I'm Allison Clarkson. I represent the Windsor County District, which is on the Connecticut River side of Vermont. And I am majority leader and vice chair of this committee and serve on Senate GovOps. And our chair may or may not be with us. It's our chair, Keisha Ram Hinsdale, you'll meet, is really under the weather today, so she will meet you when she comes in.
And I'm Randy Brock, and I represent Franklin County and part of Grand Isle County, far northwestern part of Vermont, just below the border. And I'm Senate Minority Leader.
And I'm Wendy Harrison. This is my first term. I live in Brattleboro and I represent Wyndham, the Wyndham district, which is actually a part, as far as you can get.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm the southeast corner.
They represent the
Yeah.
exchange of the state.
Well, no, but it's I would say it's a good geographical distribution.
Yeah. And we're central, and Keisha's east, she's Chittenden County. So you have a little bit of whole range,
Some
which,
of us drive a lot.
yeah, which all our committees try and
Some of us
represent.
have a whole mile.
So take it away as you would like, and thank you for joining us
Thank
today.
you so much, and thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. For the record, Agatha Kessler, Sergeant at Arms. The goal of this is to introduce you to John and to hear a little bit about his background, his philosophies, and his initial impressions of the building. But I'll start just by saying a couple words on the transition of the Sergeant at Arms office. So Janet is still on board. She's acting in, I would say, sort of a consulting capacity.
Great.
Just walking through the building with her and seeing how she talks to people, how she handles situations, how she seeks guidance and information from all the different stakeholders. Something that's very important about this building is not making decisions in a vacuum, really reaching out to all the people who could be affected by a decision. Something might seem like a simple yes, that I can do that, that's no problem. But you really have to anticipate how that yes would affect everyone else in the building. So, for example, this one just came up this morning. Outright Vermont is on the State House lawn doing an event and is seeking access to single stall restrooms. And the question was, can we temporarily convert the men's and women's bathrooms into unisex bathrooms? And although that would be a great thing to do, it really is not a feasible thing to do in the moment. These sorts of things happen all the time at the State House. Questions come in that require immediate answers. Just think about the ripple effect on everyone. So if the Sergeant at Arms is doing their job well, I think the members are comfortable, and part of that comfortable is safety. And that's where John, the Capitol Police Department, come in. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Kevin Williams to talk a little bit about how John got here, the recruitment process, and why John's a good fit for the role. So Kevin.
Okay, thank you. For the record, Kevin Williams, interim director of police until about 5 o'clock today. It has been an honor. an absolute privilege and an honor to serve here. And I want to thank each of you that I had an opportunity to meet or engage with in terms of how warmly I have been received. It has just been amazing here. I'm shocked that 6 months have passed so quickly.
But they have gone fast.
Yes, yes. I got here 6 months ago and now I'm leaving tomorrow. With that said, this is a critically important job. And there were so many things that I needed to do that I didn't get a chance to get to because there were other priorities that I had to take care of to lighten the load for the new chief. If you look at it like a race where you're passing the baton, what we needed was a chief of police that was ready to receive that baton. And when I looked at the resumes, the applications, there was a gentleman who stood out, and that is John Polway. And when I looked at his education, his training, his experience, and then something else that caught my eye that I knew was extremely valuable. The longest I've ever been a chief is 4 years. And then it was time to leave. And think about where you live and the chiefs where you're at. They change quite frequently. Every 3-4 years, you're looking for a chief if you're looking to have one that long. He served in his last assignment for over 13 years consecutive as a chief. That told me, here's someone who knows how to interact with people, how to serve in the community, how to understand the position of the chief of police as it relates to politics and changing environments. You don't get to be a police chief for over a decade without not knowing how to do the job. There were other things because when I actually met him and started talking to him and was a part of the vetting process, I said, okay, here's a man that I feel not only confident with passing a baton to, but I also feel so confident in his abilities that I, as a 6-time chief, would be comfortable working for him. So I tell you without question or reservation, we found the right person with the right temperament and the right comportment and the right ability to communicate and understand the needs of us. And as he starts to share with you his initial observations, you see what I'm talking about. Because everything he told me about his initial observations, I agree with him, said, yes, those were on my priority list, but there were some other issues that were more pressing. So I tried to take care of those so that he could start to hit the ground running. And this is our chief, John Polway.
Right. Thank you. And Kevin, thank you for your service. We have loved having you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Um,
That was very kind.
John, forgive us, but
Yes.
in 7 minutes, we're going to start being called to the floor of the Senate.
Okay.
So-
I'll be very brief. in
No,
my
you don't need to
comments.
be, we hopefully have a long time to get to know you.
Absolutely. So I started my career in New York City upon graduating from high school. I went to Long Island University where I attained a bachelor's in criminal justice. Then segued into New York City Police Department. Served there in multiple community policing initiatives before becoming a patrol officer on the steady midnights on the Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Ooh, what years were you on duty in New York?
From 90 to 92, and it was in the academy in 89. I started my
You're,
first academy.
yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to get to Westchester County, and I served in the village of Larchmont for 27 and a half years. And I served in multiple roles while there. I was a police officer, a detective and a youth officer, a sergeant, a detective lieutenant, and then ultimately chief of police, where I served in that capacity for 13 and a half years. I was also the emergency response coordinator for the village. So that meant I was responsible for coordinating the emergency response to any man-made or natural disasters. That required me to form significant, meaningful relationships with external stakeholders. We were a job of 28 sworn. In that part of New York, it's considered a smaller job. So when a true emergency presents itself, your resources can easily be expended, and then you need other contingency plans to overcome that. So I was able to form these relationships with the towns and villages around me, certainly county public safety, state police, and even federal authorities. And those relationships are invaluable. I've already begun that process here. I'm receiving intelligence reports from the state of Vermont. I've attended a Vermont Association of Chiefs of Police meeting. We had chiefs here this past Monday for a luncheon just to get to know people. I've introduced myself to Chief Nordenson. He was at our promotional ceremony. So this will develop over time, and these will be resources that we will require in the event that we have an emergency. Believe.
Well, and I just
Please.
think, add, you don't need an emergency to be interacting with the people who represent us in our police
Of
departments,
course.
because we have had many members who've had active actions with, threats and things locally that have translated into having to coordinate, our police departments.
There is a special relationship with the city, I'm feeling.
Yeah,
of course.
In the form of.
I'm going to rely on the institutional knowledge of law enforcement in this state. So yes, these relationships are necessary, and I'll continue to develop them. I believe policing is law enforcement in general is one of the most difficult professions, simply because it's always evolving and changing. We have legislative actions that dictate how our operations can proceed, the use of force, those types of things. Certainly, there are societal expectations that change, and technology continues to develop and progress at an unprecedented rate. And these are all things that we need to take into consideration as we're delivering public safety, law enforcement, those types of things. I will say briefly about our department. We've now promoted two of the officers, Sergeant Truhan and Sergeant Becerra, absolutely capable and dedicated individuals. They serve this community extremely well. Proud to work with them and made them understand that they are now the building blocks of this department moving forward. We're now in the process of trying to hire and backfill positions that are vacant. And we need to present a new reality to the people that are coming here, a professional one, trained, and dedicated to our mission. So those are things briefly about my background. I also went in 2005 to encourage training throughout my career and educating myself. I went back to Marist College in New York.
Oh, right.
I attained a master's degree in public administration, which is extremely useful in terms of my administrative responsibilities. And then I was selected for the FBI National Academy in 2016, and that is in Quantico, Virginia. So they take senior law enforcement executives throughout the country. And we lived, it's a big Marine Corps base, and it houses the FBI Academy. And we lived on the grounds, and we were with 48 representatives from 48 other states and 15 to 16 different countries. Wonderful relationships were formed, and I took quickly three things away from that. It's really about taking care of your people, making sure that their mental health and well-being are accounted for, that they have the resources and supports they need, and that we continue to train them so they're capable and effective law enforcement officers. The second was using best standards and policies, which is absolutely essential. That's one of the tasks I will have here, is developing a comprehensive policies and procedures manual. So that'll be one of my priorities for sure. And the last was the value of networking, which we just discussed briefly. And finally, one of the first, I'd like to talk briefly about just the security of the building. The first thing I did when I got here last Monday was Kevin and Janet brought me around, and we toured the entire facility. And after that, my first impression was of concern, because this is a very porous atmosphere, and there is no formal screening process whatsoever. And I understand that it is the people's house, and I respect that as a history enthusiast. It's a very pure form of our government, and it's actually not seen anywhere else. So I respect that. But
And it's treasured, and that's the other challenge.
yes,
That
and,
is
and
treasured.
absolutely. And I respect it, but I don't think we can ignore the realities that exist in 2024. So there are people who are opposed to enhanced security measures. I will have to change hearts and minds, and I will do that incrementally over time. And I would seek to initiate slowly a screening process where we're channeling people in from certain areas of the building so we can observe human behavior and look at people and decide whether it's suspicious and whether we should engage in a conversation. I think ultimately we need to have a magnetometer and a very formal screening process. Again, down the road, I think in order for it to be successful, we have to be considerate of those who do not feel a sense of urgency in instituting formal processes. So that's, I know we're pressed for time.
That is,
So-
we have 3 minutes
by the
left.
bell.
Okay, thank you so much.
To
And
be continued.
yes, yes.
And your job is to be